A silent revolution is underway in Australia. New forms of social enterprise are emerging, blurring the demarcation lines between public, private and not-for-profit sectors. The New World of Social Enterprise was the title of a public lecture hosted by the Centre for Social Impact, based at the University of New South Wales.
As there has been this move away from charity and philanthropy to the idea of social investment, to a more strategic approach to deciding who or how to support and for what purposes, how on earth do you do it? It is very easy to talk of social investment, but it begs a very difficult question, one that the CSI needs to tackle, which goes back to the values-driven nature of community organisation, namely, how does one measure the returns on a social investment? Relatively easy to measure profits, relatively easy to measure shareholder value. How do you measure the return on investing in an organisation whose values and outcomes are defined in values?
For Professor Michelle Haber, this is a familiar dilemma in her role at the Children's Cancer Institute of Australia.
In addition to our research activities, we have public benevolent institution status, so we are a charity. And so we have a very active and vigorous fundraising side of our organisation. We are very fortunate in raising several $1 million every year from the community. And as a result of this hybrid personality, as an organisation we have KPIs that are clearly financial, that are very similar to the for-profit sector, and non-financial. So on the research side, we measure our performance in exactly the same way as the university does. We measure it in terms of the quality of our research outputs, the successes of our scientists, the number of clinical trials that we engage in, the new drugs that we develop, the amount of peer-reviewed funding that our scientists are able to compete for from state and federal and government and international organisations. On the other side of the equation, we run a business. We have in excess of a $20 million annual operating budget, and the major sources of revenue are from peer-reviewed grants that we attract, funding that we raise from the community, also income from our investments, and a very small and unpredictable proportion of our income comes from state and federal government, which is garnered in great measure through our relationship with the university, because we can claw back from the government a small proportion of the peer review grant funding that we attract can then be brought back to the Institute to support.
Growing inequity is demanding a new way of harnessing capital market models, incorporating traditional business tools and strategies to achieve a social bottom line.
Given the current global climate, are we at a defining time to build on what's been a very quiet revolution that's taken place over the last 25 years, a revolution which has seen a fundamental shift in the architecture of the social part of our society. Some of the characteristics of that you'd spot in the rise of social entrepreneurs, benchmarks of ethical and fair trade, and the changing nature of philanthropy towards social investment and investment for social impact. And this has happened, in my view, because a critical mass of people have responded to the compelling evidence of the ever-increasing inequity in the way the planet's resources and opportunities haven't been shared, and at the same time taking in the rising environmental and health crises going on around us.
The challenge, I think, is that the importance of social innovation to our future is often inadequately recognised. I'd have to say that is a bit disappointing that the Carver review on innovation that has just been submitted to government has only passing reference to either social or public innovation. And yet, the entrepreneurship that produces social innovation, that produces paradigm-shifting innovations. Think, for example, of the Open University as a response to educational access. Think, for example, of microfinancing as a response to poverty. Think, for example, of emissions trading as a response to climate change. These social innovations, I'd suggest to you, are just as significant to our national global well-being as new technologies, new organisational systems in the private sector. And I have to say to you, this is an area in which Australia, looking to the future, should look back to the past. Because if you look back to the Australasian colonies at the end of the 19th century, they were seen as a heart of social innovation. Bush nursing, mutual associations, mechanics institutes, working class self-help born of the tyranny of distance, and many visitors to Australia came here to study those social innovations.